At around the time when the Shin Megami Tensei 30th anniversary first began and announced the resurrection of the trading card game, I made a video highlighting why I was not excited for it personally, and in that video I pointed to the Persona 25th as evidence to be skeptical. Something that would only come to be cemented when announcements clearly meant for the 25th were revealed during the SMT 30th instead. If you had asked me when I made that video specifically what I thought would have happened during this anniversary, then I would have said that each of the planned events would have been some excuse to sell some overpriced merch, and then to cap it off they would have had some sort of an announcement for an upcoming game, just like they had during the Persona 25th. However, at the time of writing and editing, the 30th anniversary is for all intents and purposes over, with nothing new announced for SMT anytime soon, whereas 2 new Persona games are set to be released in November and February respectively. While my expectations were still low, I still expected something before the end, an announcement of a port or an English language patch to an existing Japanese port if nothing else. But instead, it's been utter silence outside of the resurrection of the aforementioned TCG with new cards, begging the question of why this is. We know that a third game was in simultaneous development by Team Maniacs alongside SMT5 and Soul Hackers 2. Logically something perhaps planned for the SMT 30th. So again, why the silence? Well, the exact factors cannot be said with absolute certainty without confirmation by Atlus, but I do believe that we can make some educated speculation given all that has happened and contrasted with Atlus's past track record. Not only do I stand by my suspicion that behind the scenes drama that Atlus has not been forthcoming with, likely but not exclusively the pandemic specifically, is the cause for these delays and overall disorganization, but also for the quietness of any new or potential SMT games by extension. It is my belief that seeing Soul Hackers 2 get largely ignored by their fanbase in favor of Persona hype, Atlus has decided not to announce any more games, else they might get overshadowed by Persona's indomitable presence, as was the fate of Soul Hackers 2 last year. Meaning that unless some slip-up happens, I wouldn't expect any SMT news, assuming that there even is any at all, to be unveiled until after the release of Reload. Especially given that Reload is one of the most requested games from the fanbase, and yet reception to it has been somewhat mixed given that it is not the true union between the best of both Fez and Portable that the fans had been desiring for well over a decade. Something that could negatively affect sales, especially given the release of Portable just a year prior. There is also the looming shadow of Persona 6 and P5B, 2 projects from Atlus that we know are in development, and the upcoming Metaphor ReFantasio, which is also set to be released next year and could further delay this new SMT game if they are serious about not wanting one project to overshadow another. However, I'd still recommend tapering my expectations. I've made no secret my contempt for SMT5 and finding Soul Hackers 2 underwhelming, and when combined with the previous blunder of 4 Apocalypse, it's hard to stir up any optimism for any future installment at this time, even with the benefit of more time to polish the product, because the fundamental problems with these games were not solely the result of rushed development with stretched resources and cut content. The issues were vapid emulation of previous ideas and the conformity to both a Wikipedia summary of Persona and SMT, rather than embracing what made SMT and Devil Summoner respectively so special and beloved, making these newer entries feel extremely generic as JRPGs with light SMT and Persona influences, rather than new entries in established Atlus IPs. And unfortunately, given simultaneous development, this likely means that this third entry will have much of the same problems, and only minimal time to alleviate them. Of course, that is assuming that this is a new game and not a port, English patch of, or HD remaster. In Japan, most of the SMT catalog is already available on the Nintendo Switch eShop, and so an English translation is all that is really needed to bring some of these games over to an audience ready and willing to sink their teeth into an official way to play these cult classics. While this is something that I do hope will happen one day, it doesn't appear to be in the cards at present. As even with the context of being close to a Persona release, it doesn't make much sense to delay what is essentially a patch to an already existing port if the release is done to celebrate an anniversary, leaving us with the only options of this third game being either an HD remaster or new game altogether. There is not a shortage of games in this series that I'd love to see get the HD remaster treatment, hopefully without some of the weird bugs that the Nocturne HD remaster had for some reason. However, by process of elimination, I would say that remakes for Persona 1 and 2 are a lot more likely at this time than any big SMT remake. In parts of Asia, Raido's outfit was considered to be heavily controversial, and with Atlus's paranoia on upsetting this lucrative market, the Raido games do not appear to be high-priority ports anytime soon. And SMT9 is barely remembered and also didn't sell all that well from my understanding, meaning that it's probably not going to get the HD remaster treatment either. Perhaps the most requested to receive this treatment by fans at present is Digital Devil Saga Avatar Tuner, a fan-favorite spin-off widely considered to be one of the best and with a dedicated cult following outside of SMT as well. But a bit of an odd choice if so, given that DDS doesn't have a lot in common with mainline outside of the use of demon designs and an apocalyptic setting. And the same can be said of the original Devil Summoner, a game with a lot of similarities to, but is ultimately a distinct experience from SMT. This leaves the most likely candidate to be SMT4, either a straight-up P3P style port, perhaps as a dual release with 4 Apocalypse, and with all the DLC for both included as well on modern platforms, or the highly requested HD remaster of 4 with HD graphics on par with SMT5, and the 2/3 of cut story content that had to be dropped due to memory limitations on the 3DS cartridge. I'll be honest, this potential, a Shin Megami Tensei 4 Reload, is at this point the only thing that I can muster any sort of optimism for, given what I mentioned about the previous games. But only if Kaneko-sensei's story is fully respected and not changed to try and appeal to an adjacent fanbase, and the imaginary focus group of generic JRPG fans. If not, then I'll have to hope for a miracle. High hopes, low expectations, as they say. The staff of companies isn't a constant nor a monolith, and while the newer members might not get SMT, others who have yet to join or who have recently joined might, and could help steer the series away from its impending dark age. Because right now, it feels like that is the direction that mainline SMT is headed. And after 2 new, if underwhelming, SMT games, we've gone all the way around to Persona milking, and Atlus forgetting or ignoring that SMT even exists during the anniversary that celebrates its 30-year history. Don't get me wrong, I still attribute this to disorganization caused by forces outside of Atlus's control, but it's still a bit annoying to see Persona steal the spotlight during SMT's anniversary with barely any time since the end of the Persona 25th. Here's hoping for at least something positive when Atlus finally gets around to acknowledging that SMT existed in 2024.